Welcome to the deep dive. We're here to, well, drill down into some complex ideas, get to the philosophical bedrock, and really figure out what matters. And today, we are tackling a pretty fundamental question of political life. It's drawn from this analysis called jurisprudence, the study of the rule of law in a republic. Now, if you listen to, political debates, you've probably noticed something. Everyone throws around words like freedom, liberty, rights, law.
Yeah, almost interchangeably.
Exactly, as if they all mean the same thing.
Sure.
But the source material we're digging into today, it insists they're really profoundly different. And mixing them up leads to, well, basically misunderstanding how governance is supposed to work.
That's absolutely right. And our goal today really is to clear up some of that fog. The core aha moment this analysis offers is this kind of hierarchy. The idea is that recognizing fundamental rights has to come before you even create laws, logically.
Okay.
Laws, you see, are just the tools, the mechanisms we build to secure those rights. They aren't where rights come from.
So rights are the foundation, the bedrock. And law is the structure built on top.
Precisely.
And like any good structure, it needs support. The analysis lays out these 8 essential operating principles, almost like 8 pillars holding it all up.
Yeah, 8 pillars that are absolutely critical if a state wants to genuinely operate under the rule of law.
Pillars that keep the whole thing stable.
Exactly. We're going to sort of give you the blueprint today, show how these principles are meant to act as a kind of firewall.
A firewall against what? Tyranny, arbitrary power.
Both. Exactly. They're safeguards.
Okay, let's unpack this then. Starting with those basic terms that get jumbled up all the time. Freedom, liberty, rights. How does the source pull them apart?
Right. We have to start with freedom. This is the big one, the most foundational. It's described here as an ontological or existential thing.
Ontological,
Yeah.
existential. What does that mean in plain terms?
It just means it's part of being human. It's built in. It's the simple, inescapable fact that we have to make choices. Sartre called it the facticity of freedom.
So it's just there, whether government likes it or not.
Exactly. It exists before politics, before society even. It's the raw state.
Okay, raw state of choice. Got it. What about liberty then?
Liberty comes next. This is where society enters the picture. Liberty is framed as a political or social matter. Thinkers like Mazzini suggested this idea. Your ability to actually use your freedom, to exercise your rights, it often depends on the collective strength.
Strength of the many protecting the individual.
Kind of, yeah. And crucially, the only thing that can legitimately limit your liberty is law, properly constituted law.
Okay, so freedom is innate choice. Liberty is that choice protected or enabled within society, limited only by law. What about rights?
Rights are presented as a moral or legal matter. The analysis points to the Declaration of Independence here, understanding rights as self-evident truths.
Self-evident truths, like life, liberty, pursuit of happiness.
Those kinds of fundamental claims. Now, this is where we shift gears slightly, from the philosophical to the, let's say, legal mechanics. Rights versus laws. Laws, according to legal positivists like John Austin, are pretty straightforward. They're commands, imperatives backed by sanctions.
Do this, don't do that, or else face the consequences.
Basically, yes. But wait, you might ask, if rights are self-evident truths, isn't that a bit fuzzy? How does something self-evident become a concrete law with penalties?
Yeah, that's a good question. How do you enforce a truth?
And this is where the source introduces a really critical distinction. De facto rights versus de jure rights.
De facto, de jure, Latin. Okay.
It's a vital nuance for you to grasp.
Yeah.
When a right is just a liberty, something you can do, but the state hasn't formally recognized it with obligations, it's a de facto right.
So it exists in fact, but not yet in law.
Exactly. It doesn't carry any formal societal obligation or sanction. But once the state recognizes that right, writes it into law, protects it, then it becomes a de jure right by law.
And de jure rights, they come with strings attached, responsibilities.
Yes. They demand responsibility. The analysis gives a great example. We all have the freedom to lie. Physically, nothing stops us in most situations.
Right.
But we absolutely do not have the right to lie under oath in court. Why? Because the right to a fair trial, the right for the court to seek truth, those are de jure rights. They impose a legal responsibility on you tell the truth and carry sanctions if you don't. Perjury.
Ah, okay. So the law recognizes the right to truth in that context, creating an obligation not to lie.
Exactly. And the argument is that laws are only really effective, only really ethical, when they're this formal recognition of the obligations that naturally accompany genuine rights.
That makes sense. Which I suppose brings us right to the rule of law itself. Section 2, it sounds good, everyone wants it, but What is it precisely? Is it just having a lot of laws?
Oh, definitely not.
Yeah.
Having lots of laws can be tyranny, right?
Yeah.
The rule of law is a governing principle, and it stands on two fundamental conditions. First, the recognition of those rights we just discussed as the basis for equal justice for everyone.
Okay, rights first.
Second, the recognition of law itself as the legitimate basis for governance. HLA Hart talked about the importance of accepting a system of rules.
Right, Hart focused on the recognition of law. But here's where the analysis we're using pushes back a bit, doesn't it?
It does. It creates a tension. It argues that, okay, Hart's right about needing to recognize law, but logically, recognizing rights has to come first, because the laws are only there to ensure the rights.
They don't define the rights themselves.
Correct. Which means the real purpose of the rule of law isn't just about managing citizens efficiently. It's fundamentally about managing power.
Controlling the controllers.
Precisely. Its single objective, according to this view, is enforcing equal rights and delivering equal blind justice, and, crucially, checking impunity, preventing those in power from being above the law.
So the rule of law is what makes political rule legitimate. It's the ultimate safeguard.
That's the idea.
The system's designed so no branch of government, no president, no parliament, no court can just decide to switch off someone's fundamental rights using the law itself.
No God mode, as you put it earlier. The core maxim that this whole study builds towards is powerful. While anyone might potentially become the ruler, everyone must live as free as the ruler.
Everyone lives as free as a ruler. That's quite a standard.
It is. And if that's the goal, how do you actually build a republic that achieves it? How do you construct that firewall?
That's where the 8 principles come in.
Exactly. They are the practical scaffolding, the nuts and bolts that hold the whole thing together.
Okay, let's walk through them. Pillars 1, 2, and 3 seem to focus on the structure and source of power itself. Pillar 1, governance by law principle.
Right. John Adams famously said it. A good government is a government of laws, not of men. Meaning everyone, absolutely everyone, is under the law. Echoing John Locke. Even the lawmakers, even the head of state, cannot place themselves above the laws they expect others to follow.
In this first pillar, it also protects against the tyranny of the majority, right?
Yes, that's a critical point in the analysis. Constitutional rights, those fundamental human rights, are seen as these self-evident truths. So while democracy lets the majority choose who governs, that majority does not get to vote away the fundamental pre-existing rights of a minority. Those rights are off limits.
They can't be tampered with by government or by popular vote.
Correct, which flows logically into Pillar 2, the sovereignty of the people. Or you could call it government by consent. The source uses thinkers like Lon Fuller here. The idea is the ruler isn't the source of power. They're just the custodian of power.
Holding it in trust for
the people, the ruled. Ultimately, in a republic, the people write the rules through constitutions, through representatives, and they choose the ruler.
Thomas Jefferson nailed this dynamic, didn't he? Liberty is when governments fear the people. Tyranny is when the people feel the government.
A perfect summary.
Nah.
And the rule of law is supposed to be what makes the government maintain that healthy fear, that accountability.
Which requires structural checks, hence Pillar 3, the separation of powers principle.
Absolutely essential. Justice Scalia, for instance, argued strongly that only separating powers can effectively protect individual rights.
Why is that separation so vital?
Because power corrupts. Right? Concentrated power is dangerous. So when you separate the power to make laws, legislative, the power to enforce laws, executive, and the power to interpret laws, judicial, and you make those branches independent and basically equal, you create a system of checks and balances. They watch each other. It prevents any one branch from getting too strong, from weaponizing government against the citizen.
Legislative legislates, executive executes, judiciary adjudicates. Keeps everyone in their lane.
That's the goal. So if that's the structure, the next big question is how power changes hands. Which brings us to pillars 4 and 5.
Selection term limits and peaceful transition.
Yeah. Term limits are crucial because they constantly reinforce Pillar 2, that sovereignty of the people idea. They serve as a constant reminder, especially to the person holding office, that the power isn't theirs. It belongs to the people. The ruler is temporary.
The office is permanent. The person is not. The law is the authority.
Precisely. The analysis contrasts elections and term limits, ballots, not bullets, with, say, the chaos of the Roman Empire.
Where succession often meant, assassination or forced suicide. Not exactly peaceful transition.
Not at all. Term limits ensure nobody becomes indispensable. Nobody starts thinking they're emperor for life. It helps prevent those dictatorial slides and aims for peaceful handovers of power.
Okay, structure, source, transfer of power. What about when things go wrong? When laws are broken? Pillar 6, penal principles, rules for punishment.
Right. First, the law has to clearly define what constitutes a crime and what the potential penalty is. No retroactive laws, no vague charges. And the source makes this really interesting point drawing on Hobbes. Punishment, in a social contract sense, is almost self-imposed
How so?
because you, as a member of society, implicitly agree to the rules. You basically say, okay, these are the rules for living together, and yes, punish me if I break them.
Okay. And this pillar has its own internal principles,
Right.
3 of them.
Yes, 3 key principles to keep punishment just and humane. First, proportionality. The punishment has to fit the crime. Think an eye for an eye. The source argues this wasn't originally about being savage. It was about limiting revenge. You take an eye, you lose an eye. Not your life, not everything you own. It prevents escalation.
So proportionality limits vengeance. What second?
Appropriateness. Basically, no cruel or unusual punishments. Dostoevsky famously said, you can judge a society's civilization by how it treats its prisoners.
How it punishes the bad reflects on the good.
Something like that. And third, continuity. Punishment should end when the sentence is served, when the debt to society is paid. It shouldn't be an indefinite burden.
Okay, proportionality, appropriateness, continuity. But this is where that classic conflict arises, right? Law versus justice.
Exactly. The source acknowledges this tension. The example given is classic. Someone breaks a traffic loss fee, but they do it to rush a dying child to the hospital.
Following the strict letter of the law demands punishment. But justice or morality might demand praise.
Right. And the rule of law has to navigate this. While laws need to be clear and generally enforceable, the judicial system often needs the wisdom to interpret the spirit, not just the letter, especially regarding sanctions.
Acknowledging complexity. Now, Pillar 7 feels very relevant today. Distinction between state laws and moral religious laws.
Hugely relevant. The argument here is crystal clear. In a secular republic operating under the rule of law, the state's laws must be distinct from religious laws or purely moral codes. The rule of law cannot be the rule of God.
So the government's job is
To regulate behavior that harms others or violates rights. Its job is not to legislate morality or enforce religious doctrine. Punishment is only justified for illegal behavior, never for conduct that someone might deem merely immoral. The source flatly rejects concepts like morality police.
So the state can fine you for playing loud music at 3 a.m. because that behavior disturbs others.
Yes, it regulates the action.
But it can't punish you simply for believing that playing music at 3 a.m. is perfectly fine. It can't legislate your belief or moral stance.
Exactly. It regulates harmful actions, not internal beliefs or private morality. That distinction is fundamental for a diverse, secular society.
Keeps the peace. Allows different beliefs to coexist under one legal system. Okay, brings us to the final pillar. Pillar 8, equal rights and blind justice.
This circles back to the beginning, really. Everyone is equal before the law. Full stop. No special treatment, no impunity, no privileges for the ruler, the rich, the well-connected. Equal liberty is guaranteed.
And the ultimate guarantor of this isn't the president or the parliament, but
The judiciary. An independent, co-equal judiciary is presented as the final backstop, protecting those self-evident individual rights. Protection against arbitrary power, protection even against the potential tyranny of the majority we talked about earlier.
the courts stand guard over the fundamental rights.
That's their crucial role in this system. The analysis also briefly touches on economics here. It says economic inequality can exist in a republic, but only if, and this is a huge if, only if foundational equal liberty and genuine equal opportunity are guaranteed for everyone. It echoes ideas from thinkers like Rawls. You can have differences in outcome, but not if the starting line is fundamentally rigged against basic rights and opportunities.
Okay, so fairness in process, even if outcomes differ. Got it. So we've gone through all 8 pillars. If we pull it all together, synthesize it, what's the big takeaway for you, for the listener?
Well, looking at the whole analysis, the single greatest threat to human rights really boils down to the concentration of power. It's when those separation principles, pillars 1, 2, 3, fail. When power isn't divided, isn't checked, that's when you get government impunity.
And impunity leads to.
Systematic violation of rights, abuse of power, the breakdown of the rule of law.
So this deep dive, hopefully, has given you a kind of toolkit, a framework. By understanding these distinctions, freedom, liberty, rights, de facto, de jure, and by being able to measure a government against these 8 operational pillars, you're better equipped now to critically evaluate things. Is a state really governed by the rule of law?
Hmm.
Or is it just using the language of law, the appearance of law, to actually exercise arbitrary, unequal power?
It's about looking past the surface.
And the knowledge here, it feels profound because it connects your individual freedom, your choices, directly to the civic structure around you. That ultimate maxim, everyone lives as free as the ruler.
Yeah, think about that for a second.
Mm.
It sets an incredibly high bar, not just for government, but for citizenship, too. If you, listening right now, truly saw yourself as a potential author of the laws you live under, as someone who should be as free as whoever's in charge,
Right.
what might change? What actions, what behaviors, what expectations would you adopt regarding your government, or even your own civic duties?
Would you demand more, expect more, participate more?
Yeah.
Exactly. It's definitely something to mull over as you look at the world.
A really powerful thought to leave you with. Thank you for diving deep with us today. We'll catch you on the next Deep Dive.